Welcome to the After Hours Clinic with Dr. David Janarious and Better Life co-founder Andrew Lane, where we unpack the science of health and wellness, cut through the noise, and add a healthy dose of humor.
Dr. Janarious, welcome back.
Good to be back. Been too long.
I can't help but notice that you may have picked up a new energy drink or nutritional supplement in a can since the last time I saw you. So what product are we promoting today?
I think it's going to be a huge game changer in the biohacking community. It's a huge performance booster, not only cognitively. It's been shown to improve cognition. It's been shown to improve, exercise capacity and endurance, particularly in high endurance activity, and also stamina in the bedroom. And that's Canada Dry.
Canada Dry, ginger ale, baby.
Yes,
All right.
Your doctor drinks soda and enjoys it.
There you go. I love it. For some of our patients, I know they're so dialed in to their stack of supplements and their, pharmaceutical optimizations that, a return to sugary cereal and sugary drinks may actually be the energy boost they're looking for.
Well, it's funny. Like my mom used to always have this saying. I'm paraphrasing. I'm sorry if I screw this up, Mom, but she's like, it's better to have a little bit of something nice than a lot of bullshit. And that was always her take, I remember when the whole Snackwells craze came in the 90s, I was a chubby kid, right? And so I immediately saw the advertisement. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to eat these Snackwells and I'm going to be buff, like beefcake, And my mom was like, no, son, that's marketing bullshit. Just have a brownie, but just eat one, not an entire sleeve of Snackwells. I'm not against artificial sweetener. I had some this morning. But personally, I think I've structured my life such that I can enjoy a Canada Dry every once in a while. And I think it's important. It's funny. I think we're going to be talking on some articles on happiness, but when we started with Better Life, we talked a lot about, human optimization in terms of optimizing, the elements of longevity, optimizing your fitness, optimizing your blood pressure, optimizing your metabolic parameters. But I think one thing that I want to focus in and hone in a lot more on is optimizing our happiness, right? Because at the end of the day, if we live to 90, even if we're in great health, if we're not happy, what's the point, right? This is my plug for putting a little bit of happiness in your life today.
Yeah, I love it, man. Love it. I'm still enjoying original Coca-Cola, as original as I can get. I prefer those Mexican Cokes in a bottle. And I was the uptight little boy that I am at the hotel this past week on vacation with my kids. I ordered a Coke 3 times to get it right. And I'm like, there's something wrong with your soda fountain. I don't know what it is. Please find Mexican Coke and prepare it for me on a platter. And they did. And that's how dependent I am.
Do you think they opened that Mexican Coke, put in that fountain soda and just handed it to you? Cause that's absolutely what I would have done. I probably would have peed in it a little and then put the same fountain. I'd be like, yeah, this is straight.
It may have. The first time I reordered it, I had one sitting in front of me and she brought it to me with a lemon or lime or something. And some people are really into that with their Coke. I'm not. So I thought this Coke is terrible. It's probably just the fruit. Let me just order another one. And she's like, oh, you want another Coke? I'm like, yeah, but this time no fruit. And she's like, whatever. Brings it to me. And the third time I'm like, listen, I know I'm crazy, but something's wrong. Something's wrong.
Yeah. No.
It's tough, man. It's my little indulgence.
The struggle. Yeah. No, people put fruit in their Coke. They remind me of that famous meme of Mark Zuckerberg trying to look like a human drinking water when he's, he basically looks like bad AI. He's like, it does not look like a human drinking. Yeah, that's what I feel like. People who put lime in Coke, that's weird and gross.
Yeah. It's weird. We went to Legoland for the first time, And my kids still don't know what Disneyland is. And, they're not here right now, so I can say that out loud. But the whole time we're at Legoland, we were with another family, and we kept, of course, comparing the experience to like being at Disneyland. And I'm like, just don't say it out loud. I don't want my kids asking me, what is Disneyland? How do I do it? But even Legoland has the soda. Have you seen those new soda machines where they'll dispense any flavor for you? They've got all the cartridges.
Yes, they have them at Five Guys. Yeah.
Yeah, they do have them at Five Guys. Yeah. Like, just give me Coke. Don't make me press 1,000 buttons. And I literally stood at the soda fountain line and helped a bunch of old people who were struggling with it. I'm counting on there being a lot of helpful young 40-year-olds to help me when I'm older.
I can't figure out the soda machine. Yeah, I find this very cathartic. It was funny in a book that we're going to talk about soon, the How to Be Well. I can't remember the author's name. She talks about in one specific episode about how in the wellness culture, we tend to put like these sort of fitness influencer types on a pedestal. And, she was talking about an account she had where one of her friends saw their favorite like Soul Cycle personality, like feeding her kids like Doritos and shit like that. And, it's funny, like, I always felt that way about, like, my love of, like, Monster energy drinks. Like, I always, like, hid that from patients, like I was a smoker, because it's not what people expect of you. They think you're, like, a hypocrite. So I like to get it out there that we are three-dimensional human beings with vices.
Yeah, maybe smoke a cigarette in the exam room every now and then. Well, hey man, it's been about a week since we last recorded. I know there's a ton of we've been sending each other articles back and forth, kind of talking about medicine in the news. Probably start with one. It's kind of a no duh, but I'm still hoping Trump's going to do something with the cost of prescription drugs, especially all these next generation weight loss drugs. But it seems like the news right now is that as he's negotiating the price of some drugs to come down, drug makers are just turning back around and hiking the prices on other drugs such that they, end up netting out the same, if not more money at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean,
are people talking about this in your country club? Are you hearing people, disappointed? I mean, I'm waiting for lower prices. I'm hoping that the big man in the White House is going to help with that someday soon. I don't know if you've been getting much pressure from patients on prescription drug costs or anything like that.
A little bit. As you know, like we do have the kind of compounding route available for a lot of patients to get certain meds at better prices. So we don't hear as much, but I actually did just have this conversation with the patient who is on a biologic for psoriatic arthritis. And, even with like coupons and things that, it was coming out to like $2,000 a month. I don't know if that has any direct, if the prices were inflated because of some of these negotiated prices. I'm not sure if that's directly related, but this is kind of like a no-duh one, right? Like, it's not as though, pharmaceutical companies are going to agree to all of a sudden stop making a profit. I do think this sort of falls into the category of sort of no duh, because what else are they going to do? What else was the article about? Because this one I don't think I read deeply into.
I mean, I think this is kind of a dig on Trump at the moment, and that's a little boring, but it did. I think what it's really drawing attention to is the way in which there's so many levers to pull on, and how anything shy of like comprehensive insurance and drug cost reform is going to always come up shorthanded, right? Like you've got to really consider the entire system, because if you're just focused on a couple price points, you're going to watch other price points go up.
Yeah, I mean. Here's the thing. I have zero hope in the idea of there being reform in the U.S. medical system. There's just way too many entrenched interests for that to ever happen. So if you're thinking that's going to happen, oh, because you vote this way or that way, if you think Trump's going to do it for you, or if you think the next person in office, dude, you're like Charlie Brown trying to kick the football from Lucy, right? Like, I mean, because
Yeah.
did the Epstein files teach us nothing? That when it comes to power, there is zero account, even when people are fucking dead to rights. Like, and it is so obvious, and nothing is done. It's just like nothing to see here. Here's a war for your entertainment. Why do we think that these kind of invisible drivers are going to be addressed by the foxes guarding the hen house? Like, yeah, no.
I want to remind our listeners that we run a concierge medical service out of it's called Better Life. You can see us at joinbetterlife.com. And we may be the world's first concierge medical practice informed by the Epstein files. Did the Epstein files teach you nothing?
I don't know why I drag it back there. Maybe it's just for clout. Maybe it's for clicks. I don't know. But I really mean that when I say, like, when people are talking about meaningful reform in an area that's obviously so entrenched in corrupt interests, it's like, why do you think, like, what faith do you possibly have? And it was funny because as that patient was talking to me about these prices, my first thought to him was like, I don't know, if I were you, I'd look for these medications in Canada. Like, I would just go abroad and get your medications. And honestly, if I could find like an easy way to do it, I don't care. I would do it for patients. Like, I know that's illegal, but I don't give a shit at this point. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's not a whole lot different than going the compounded drug route with some of these GLP-1 medications, right? I mean, they're obviously you've got to have a good compounding pharmacy that you trust, but at the end of the day, they're doing mail order with ingredients from an approved supplier in India or China.
Exactly. And so, I mean, and I love how you cut me off before I like snitched on myself too hard. To be clear, we're not doing this right now, but only because like I haven't really thought to look into it. If I could press a button and get cheaper drugs, yeah, you know what? You can lock me up and make me a martyr. Yes.
Speaking of taking medicine into your own hands, I think we can I think we can acknowledge that there's a spectrum, right? There's the spectrum of grabbing life by the balls and getting what you need, taking charge of your own medical care. This is an article, I think you read this about a week ago. We definitely talked about it about a week ago. And I just wanted to kind of get some recorded feedback from you. Like, we've talked about this before. There seemed to be kind of the wellness machine on Instagram is guiding more and more people towards peptides. I think you were even telling me about one you heard of called the Wolverine blend. This seems to be kind of the extreme example of taking things into your own hands, switching all the way to experimental drugs that have no clinical trials on them.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to do, thanks for ruining this for me. I was going to do a whole podcast underrated or overrated on peptides. And I would say in the state things are in 2025, 2026, I forgot which year we were in, 2026. I'm just going to say it outright, overrated. So let's talk.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about what peptides are, just so we can, have some definitions up there. Peptide is basically a sequence of amino acids of less than 50 amino acids. So any bigger, it's a protein, but 50 amino acids or less, it's a peptide. And it just mimics an intracellular signaler. So the first blockbuster peptides aren't new. The first blockbuster peptide is insulin, right? Insulin is a peptide. And obviously that's not overrated. That saves lives, right? GLP-1s, tirzepatide, semaglutide, both peptides. I wouldn't say they're overrated. I'd say they absolutely do the job and have a lot of great benefits. But I think peptide has become this sort of buzzword for, the kind of person that identifies more with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and what's her name? The Surgeon General lady.
Casey Means. Dr. Casey Means.
Than they do with their own doctor, right? It is basically this sort of catch-all for wellness, and everyone's chasing after the latest and greatest in peptides.
Yeah, so let me just summarize a couple of things you're saying, because I think they're important points. Like the word peptide in general is a classification that's given to many different chemical compounds. It's kind of anything that are amino acids strung together, but fewer than 50. Is that generally, am I relaying that back? And many medications that we already celebrate and use widely are also within that category. They're called peptides. Ozempic is a peptide, insulin is a peptide, many other medications are peptides. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
So peptides, when people talk about peptides, though, the kind of the influencer set, the biohacking community talking about peptides, the gym rats, the bodybuilders, the way they use the word peptide tends to generally refer to unapproved medicines that are peptides that are available on the gray market and black market in some cases. And they're kind of in the same category as steroids. Like these are the same people and they're the same supply chains that are cranking out steroids so people can build muscle faster or recover from injury faster. Instead of being called steroids anymore, now they're calling them peptides.
Not all peptides are necessarily in the same channels as, steroids and other bodybuilder products. Oftentimes, the peptides that have become popularized were actually used for some other indication. They were studied to be like an FDA-approved drug for something else, didn't work well for that condition, but had other properties that may lend themselves to improving things like, gaining muscle mass, losing fat mass, and things like that. So one of the first peptides that really became popular on the scene was something called sermorelin. Sermorelin is a growth hormone releasing peptide. So in other words, it is something that binds to the gland that's right outside the brain that releases growth hormone. So it stimulates your sort of own natural production of growth hormone. And there are studies in humans that show that, yes, when you give that peptide, it does in fact boost their growth hormone production closer to where they would be in their 20s. So not like crazy, super physiological peaks like you would get if you just gave someone straight up recombinant growth hormone, but more like a gentle nudge to get them closer to when they were younger, right? And physiologically, this can be demonstrated. There are, pharmacodynamic studies where they give people this peptide and you can see the response. What is really lacking is strong evidence to suggest that they really do what they are purported to do. Meaning, for example, in sermorelin, the only study that I'm aware of was in elderly adults. I believe they were male adults who got this peptide, and there was some modest increase in strength and performance in certain activities, but it wasn't like they had this very robust improvement in their lean muscle mass and things like that. There's actually another peptide kind of in the same category called tesamorelin, which is actually FDA approved. This is an FDA approved medication called Agrifta. It is approved for HIV lipodystrophy. So one thing that happens, as HIV became a chronic disease, people were no longer dying from, HIV itself, and they were living in old age, but they realized that what would happen to a lot of these individuals, and we don't know if it's because of the medicines or the virus itself, but they would develop these really unhealthy fat deposits called visceral fat around their organs. So this peptide that is, can be obtained in the black and gray market is actually an FDA approved medication that has been clinically proven to reduce visceral fat. So it's not.
I just put that up on the screen. The FDA approved drug is called Agrifta.
Yeah,
and this is tesamorelin.
Yes, exactly. So the peptides. I don't want to make it sound like they're this crazy black market science, but I think when I say they're overrated is they're given a lot more weight than what they really do, especially when you consider the price. So for example, like testosterone is a perfect example. It absolutely has been shown to reduce visceral fat in the population with HIV lipodystrophy. Remember, very specific population. But, that, and some of the compounding pharmacies we work with, that could come out to $450 a month. Whereas for $250 a month, you could just get semaglutide, which does the same thing and has more robust weight loss. And I believe, if I remember correctly,
and more data.
And if I remember correctly from the Agrifta studies, I do believe there was like an increase in glucose intolerance and type 2 diabetes, ironically, and paradoxically, in some of the patients that received Agrifta. So that's what I'm saying. It's like there's all these sort of fancy, kind of mechanisms and anecdotal data that gets people excited. That is great marketing. But the reality is the real clinical data showing that it really is worth its weight in terms of its money, in terms of the cost and the potential side effects, just isn't there. Another one that's huge on the market is the Wolverine peptide. Everyone asks me about the Wolverine peptide. And, the Wolverine peptide is a combination of two peptides, BPC-157 and thymosin beta-4. BPC-157, thymosin beta-4, the idea is that these promote soft tissue healing by encouraging the migration of something called fibroblasts to this site of wounds and increasing blood vessel supply. Data on this in humans is, if it's existed, I'm not aware of it. It's largely based in animal data, which does show that, in fact, there is some wound healing benefits and even healing benefits in terms of like internal wounds, like peptic ulcers. But this is not borne out necessarily in any human data that I'm aware of. And again, I have so many patients that have asked for this by name because they'll have like a condition like a tough to treat tendonitis. But I'm like, hey man, before we even start talking about like $200, $300 a month to inject yourself with something with like really unknown efficacy and definitely unknown long-term safety, have you tried just going on YouTube and doing some physical therapy exercises? Because honestly, I beg of you, if you're listening to this, when you're asking your doctor about the latest and greatest, ask them what they would do in your situation. Because I tell them, like, I get tendonitis all the time. I played sports my whole life. I'm not, when I get tendonitis, I'm not like, oh, let me get my hookup for the Wolverine blend. My thought is, okay, let me figure out the anatomy. And because I'm a doctor, I can figure out exactly which tendon it is. And then I just go onto YouTube and I find the rehab exercises and I do. That's it. That's how I treat it. And if I really need a little extra oomph, I give myself a couple days of prednisone for a fraction of the cost, for cents on the day. I can take prednisone and it'll do the same thing.
For cents on the day, yeah. Yeah. It does scratch at this like greater trend though, which is out there, which is, we've got all of this reason to be frustrated and dissatisfied with the medical establishment as a whole, like the medical system as a whole. And it's all too tempting for the layman to jump ship and to have an irrational response to that and say like, well, the system is so corrupt and broken or busted that I'm now going to go and follow this YouTuber or this Instagrammer on whatever sort of experimental drug they recommend. It's a bridge too far, it seems.
Yeah. And I want to be clear, like, I think when we established BioLife, one of the things we strongly believe in is patient autonomy. So there are times where I think peptides are worth a try, especially when it's a condition that clearly does not have a good solution in terms of, modern medicine, or when modern medicine may have a solution, but it doesn't work for that patient, right? So it's not like when patients ask me for this, I read them the Riot Act and tell them, how dare they question my authority? you must be listening too much RFK Jr. And I don't say that. I tell them kind of what I just said. Say, hey, if it's me, I'm trying this first, and if everything else fails, then I'm gonna drop money on this and maybe endure a little bit of risk. But I absolutely had patients I prescribed the Wolverine blend to, and to be honest, the results have been really underwhelming. I'm just going to say that from my own anecdotal experience, I have not had a single person come off the Wolverine blend and just be like, wow, I feel like Wolverine. Like I got adamantium in my bones. No, they're just like, oh, it was cool.
I feel like
a
50-year-old Jackman.
Yeah. It reminds me of the first time I tried to smoke pot but didn't know how to inhale. And I was like, I think I'm high. Yeah, colors are brighter, I think. I feel like that's like them trying to justify their expense, So I'm just honest with people, but there are times, where I've considered peptide therapy. So some of the ones that I find exciting are some of the mitochondrial peptides. There are peptides out there like MOTC, SS31, humanin. And it's not a peptide, but, methylene blue actually has its impact on mitochondrial function in the electron transport chain. So for a patient with like chronic fatigue after a virus where nothing is working, that's the person that I think is a good peptide candidate. And to be clear, I'm a doctor who really believes that doctors should, as best they can, try to take the medicines they prescribe. Obviously I'm not taking like antibiotics and stuff, but like with these peptides, I dabbled. I'm the canary in the coal mine. Like, so I tried a lot of them, and I honestly, I did notice some benefits with a couple of the mitochondrial peptides in terms of I just felt my fitness actually improve. And I actually did take one when I had long COVID, and it could be coincidence, but man, it really coincided with, my tachycardia, which this elevated heart rate, which I never have other than long COVID. It kind of disappeared after a week or two on the peptide. Now, it may have happened anyways.
Even that use case seems to be in alignment with this general recommendation that I hear, coming out of you, which is like, I wouldn't trust these random peptides to be a first-line treatment for something. But if you're dealing with a condition that doesn't have a first-line treatment, or if you're someone who's gone through multiple rounds of treatment of that are first and second line treatments, and they're not working for you, then maybe this becomes the thing to try after that.
Absolutely. And because I can never shut up, I'm just going to add one more point.
just admit to more drug use. Yeah, let's go.
But, no, in all seriousness, this is an important distinction. We've talked about this in the previous podcast. When it comes to, you brought up the gray market and the black market. What I consider the gray market is what we do, I guess, where we have relationships with known compounding partners that follow USP standards for compounding. And then there's the black market, which is you just buy it directly from China. The reason I would recommend against the black market is not because I make any money. I don't charge people when I dispense peptides. I don't believe in it. It is because of this. There's two things that could happen if you get it on the black market. One, you just have no way of knowing what it is. Versus if you're getting it compounded from, a compounding pharmacy, you can actually ask for a batch analysis for confirmation that it is what it says it is. Secondly, they don't have to adhere to any compounding standards. So you can get what are called bacterial endotoxins inside the actual product that you want, that by USP standards, our compounding pharmacies have to ensure that they have basically an insignificant levels of before they can dispense it. And those bacterial endotoxins, those are the things that can cause, the dreaded inflammation and, potentially other badness in your body. So that's what say, like, if I was dead broke and I was 20, yeah, I would probably do the black market thing. I actually said this to a patient, but like, if I had the money, like if it's an extra, if the difference is $100, just do it properly, or as properly as you can in the gray market.
So I want to call attention to, I'm struggling to find the exact spot, but there we go. the author of this New Yorker article about peptides actually goes down the rabbit hole, buys peptides from 3 different websites, and tracks down a company that does that batch analysis and chromatography and actually analyzes them. And I'm struggling to find the exact sentence,
But I
but
think you're right there. Like, so.
here we go. Yep. I was pretty close. So all of the peptides from Swiss Chems had significant issues. The vial of BP 157 contained lead. The vial of TB 500, this is the Wolverine blend, the 2 halves, contained endotoxins. And the vial of CJC 1295 contained less than 42% of the advertised dose. So that's one. He ultimately, one of the other sources had delivered him a legitimate product. And then one of them was this kind of like, degraded product. And the third one was nothing at all. And so, they're pretty bad. I think it speaks to the need to like, go with a reputable source. It's
funny. I'm going to give myself a little, a slap on the wrist and a pat on the back. So I sent this article to you, but I never read it. And so when you brought it up, I was like nervous, but I think I feel so validated in that the author actually said exactly what I just said. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. He comes to the exact same conclusion. Yeah. And, and they mention in there that something they don't talk enough about, I think, is the effect of what happens when a drug is orphaned. We've talked a lot about that in the past, something like rapamycin, where a lot of these drugs existed. You were explaining some of the life cycle of it.
Can I explain that? Rapamycin is not an orphan medication. Yeah. It's not. It's
off patent. It's an
off-label
patent,
use.
No. It's also no longer patented.
Oh, yes.
As well. The patent has run out on rapamycin.
But when you say orphan drug, just to be clear, like orphan drug means it was designed for like a rare condition. Let me actually look up the definition of orphan drugs.
Well, then let's widen the definition. Let's widen the definition to be any drug that is no longer within its patented window. Some of those become orphaned drugs and some of them don't, right? But there becomes this, it really kills the business case for further studying those drugs, and it kills the business case for conducting clinical trials, which cost hundreds of millions of dollars to do. And it creates this kind of huge pile of drugs that are out there that, while they exist, they might have been studied for one thing, and now there's basically very little commercial profit incentive to study them any further because at the end of the day, the patent has expired, and even if you do invest all that money, anyone can copy it.
So, yeah.
As a generic.
Perfect. So for sermorelin, another one called ipamorelin, CJC 125 and ipamorelin. These were, if I remember correctly, the original indication was post-operative ileus, which is just a condition where the bowel basically freezes after surgery. And the idea was that these drugs could turn the bowel back on. And it didn't work out that way. So they just kind of set it to the side. These were never FDA approved for this. So I guess it wouldn't necessarily fall into that category, but it's one of these things that I mean, right now, I'm not sure that there's a financial incentive.
I guess the broader point is there are many drugs that have paused their development and are unlikely to be picked back up in the traditional drug pharmaceutical realm because of financial incentive or disincentive, right? Some of them got to FDA approval for one indication, but never for any others. Some of them got paused on their way to FDA approval. Some of them were considered failures because they were truly orphaned because they didn't do what they were hoping they would do in a limited case. And then now there's no financial incentive to go back and re-examine them for other things.
Yeah. And in fact, I think there's one. So I looked up, cause I always am so embarrassed when I misdefine things so I'm actually looking at it's a pharmaceutical agent that is developed to treat certain rare medical conditions. So one orphan drug that I think would blow all of these out of the water, we talked about this in a previous episode, was bimagrumab. Do you remember bimagrumab?
Yeah, isn't that the one that shows some promise with clearing plaques on the brain?
No. The bimagrumab was the myostatin inhibitor. So this was a drug used to treat a very rare condition called inclusion body myocyte.
This is the one that's going to allow you to lose weight and gain muscle at the same time.
So it's called inclusion body myositis. It's an extremely rare, progressive, and I believe it's fatal disease that actually my wife's mentor from residency specialized in. And this drug did not have meaningful results in that small population. But interestingly, in a separate phase 2 clinical trial, had this really, in my mind, profound benefit of, it did result in some modest weight loss. But what was more profound was people were gaining muscle while they were losing weight, which you don't see that with, that would pair amazingly with semaglutide. And if that were on the market, we'd be like, Summer what? Summer who? What? So I do think a lot of this stuff is a flash in the pan, if I'm quite honest.
I see.
Yeah.
So I had sent you one. I suspect you hadn't seen it yet, but I think it's maybe a reasonable jumping off point to, there's just so much information and disinformation and cloudy information out there. And we're now in the age of AI chatbots that are keeping us from being lonely. This was just a heartbreaking story over the weekend in the New York Times of a man who lost his father to leukemia, and his father declined treatment at a time when it could have significantly extended his life, and it could have significantly made a difference. But this was a guy who had lung cancer first, and then was in remission, and then was diagnosed with leukemia, and ignored his doctor's entreaties to start treatment because he was talking to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was telling him no, that's not right. You shouldn't do those treatments. Those are not necessary.
Whoa.
And he just, and he made clinical. I mean, he chose to go against the advice of multiple doctors over the course of 18 months. And his son found out about it when he was going through his MyChart. He was going through his dad's MyChart as his dad was on his deathbed, and he's like, "Oh my God, what's going on here?" And so I mean, I know we both use ChatGPT. I know we both use AI for lots of things.
This is going to sound callous, man, but I think this is an example of you can't fix stupid, and you can't fix arrogant, right? Because there are going to be people that do this, but anyone with a modicum of sense would be like, let me ask Claude what he thinks, let me get a second opinion from a different AI engine. They exist out there. Let me use Google. Let me use, if when someone is so closed-minded that they pigeonhole they derive all their beliefs from one very narrow source, you can't help those people. I talk, I was just talking to someone, and I just kind of nodded and whatever, who was, talking about her theory about how all the metabolic disease we have, they all correlate with when vaccines started happening. I'm like, they probably also correlate with television and toaster ovens and all kinds of shit.
Right. But right. There's other things that are on the ascendancy there. Yeah.
I didn't say that because I know that nothing I'm going to say is going to replace her trust in her own personal chatbot, RFK Jr. And so I'm sorry, that it sounds to me like the casualty of progress. Unfortunately, there's no putting it back. I think we need to make people aware, but to me, that is no different than when Steve Jobs died of pancreatic cancer. People think when I say Steve Jobs died of pancreatic cancer that, he got the pancreatic cancer. Everyone dies from that. No. That's pancreatic adenocarcinoma. He had a neuroendocrine pancreatic tumor, which that is easily curable. His doctors could have cured him. He caught it in time. He he would be with us today if he had just lived, if he had just listened to, people that clearly knew more about the topic, but he was so arrogant and so high in his own greatness that he was like, oh, I'm going to listen to German new medicine, which is like some bullshit about like eating fucking herbs and like running barefoot in a field. I don't know what it's about. It's not worth reading because it's nonsense, because it promises to treat cancer.
Even if you do, you should maybe vary up your information diet and not only read it.
I'm being sassy today. I don't know what got in me.
I think it blends well with the last article we wanted to talk about, which is, to be clear, I think Steve Jobs died of arrogance, right? He was so arrogant, he thought he knew more about pancreatic cancer than all the experts that he was paying, to treat him. But, I think it goes to show that like sometimes we serve so many patients who are interested in optimizing and tweaking, right, their health to get more years and more health span, that sometimes the best lowest hanging fruit is actually like lifestyle intervention.
It's always
right. Some of them are already as healthy as they're going to get.
Yeah, it's almost always. I agree.
Yeah. So you sent me this 6 life-changing lessons from the biggest studies on human happiness. I don't know if you actually got to read the list or not, but I thought we'd step through it together. Okay. So the first one, quiet quit on time-sucking activities. It's basically saying like, stop working so hard and eliminate things that aren't pleasurable if you can.
Yeah, I wasn't so sure. I kind of agree, yes and no. I mean, quiet quitting on the job basically is the notion that like you don't do anything other than what is absolutely required from your job. I think that has a place, especially if you work a really mundane job and you're not inspired by it. But on the flip side, like, even when I worked for the man and I worked for a corporate practice, I always went above and beyond because it brought me joy. I've talked about in the past that I created a weight loss program that I was super proud of at my last job. And I made no extra money. It was a bunch of extra work, a bunch of extra responsibility. It brought a lot of joy because I love to create. So I think, but at the same time, I think I left partially because they wouldn't let me have control of my baby. And at that point, I was like, well, I'm either going to quiet quit or just quit and do my own thing. And I chose quit. There's a lot more integrity in that. What do you think, Andrew? I mean, you're an employer. I mean, you tell me, what's your thought of quiet quitting?
I have 2 perspectives on it. One is an employer, right? It's hard to see employees that are doing the bare minimum, and it feels very, very unfair to the ones that are actually going above and beyond. At the same time, I'm incredibly mindful of when we ask people to work outside of, in a way that interferes with their family life or their personal time. I'm surrounded by friends up here in Seattle that work for Amazon, who has got to be the worst employer on earth that I've encountered.
Even
right?
for like the higher ups, like even for like the higher ups that like you encounter.
Yeah. Even the people that are high on the food chain,
like they get bathroom
towards the top of the food chain.
Like they don't have to like pee in a jar at their workstation.
They don't. Yeah, they're not peeing in a jar in their car or peeing. Yeah, they're not peeing on Zoom calls, but even they're unhappy, right? And I think it's because they just have a culture there that just rides everyone so hard, where late night responses to phone calls, emails, like there is no you time. There is no weekend off. You work for Amazon. Everyone at Amazon is a hybrid employee. They work 5 days out of the office and 2 days from home on Saturday and Sunday. So it is, I just wanted to, I do think we get into, I do think people sometimes go overboard though. Right. And you should definitely analyze your habits. And some people are trying too hard, not necessarily at their job, but they're overcomplicating like what needs to be done. Right. Like we didn't sign our kids up for sports this spring because we had too much going on, too many trips, too many other obligations. And my kids are going to be just fine without sports this spring. Like they've got plenty of other extracurriculars keeping them busy, but there is a real treadmill, around us that says like your kids need to be signed up for sports at all times. And, to me, that was my form of quiet quitting, was saying like, we're going to pull back and take a deep breath. opt for variety over becoming an expert. To me, this is like, I'm learning to play the ukulele. I'm absolutely terrible at it. You're not going to hear me recording YouTube clips for it anytime soon, but I absolutely love it.
Really?
I'm not going to become a ukuleleist, but like, I love using my little iPad app and like a couple hours a week learning to do it a little better.
Are we going to record together?
Like, I don't think so. I maybe in person I would get up. I would like, maybe if we chose like 3 songs to learn ahead of our next ski trip, I would do that.
Oh, we're doing that.
That would be fun. I could do that.
You're not probably going to do that.
I'm not going to do. I'm definitely going to do that.
You're doing that.
Because it's the variety I need in my life, right? Like that is an example of the variety I need in my life, not just further diving into business logistics or IT support. So
this is, I think this is a thing that it's one of the many reasons I feel like the most important investment in my happiness ever made was marrying Dr. Uffer Janarious, because this is a lesson that she taught me. She is someone who will pick up a hobby like every few months, and she will just jump into it with zero background and just like wing it. And she's not there. Like, she picked up piano, for example, and I think she's actually doing a great job picking up, but she's not trying to like, I talked to her, I was like, oh, do you want to play a recital? Do you want to like, kind of the same shit I just did with you. Like, hey, do you want to like put some songs together? And she's like, absolutely fucking not. Like, I want to play for myself. And like, I don't want it to be something where there has to be metrics and goals and blah, blah, blah. I just want to do it for the intrinsic joy of doing. So this one, I wholeheartedly endorse.
Good. Love it. And I think Uffer and I share that quality. We're constantly like picking up a new project. Like, oh, I haven't mastered it. There's something I know nothing about. Let me do this for fun. Try new things just for the fun of it. I feel like that could be closely related to the variety one.
Yeah.
It definitely, I was so stoked to hear that we've got some patients that are getting more into pickleball. And pickleball is another example of that for me, right? Like I did not grow up as a big sports guy. I played some basketball as a teenager, played some soccer as a young kid, but I didn't play in college. I didn't play real seriously in high school, but like pickleball has been like, pickleball is life, man. I'm going to get you into it. It's a part of this.
I will embrace that opportunity. I think for me, this is like gardening. Like, so this year I really got into gardening, and I have all kinds of things: eggplants, blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, bananas, like a whole orchard of trees that I'm planting. And what I can tell you is I could easily buy these things at Publix. Like, I could just go and buy as many of them as I want. And the truth is, all of my production this year has basically been eaten by the various critters that live in my backyard. Like, my strawberries get demolished. Like, I think I've eaten like 2 strawberries the entire season. My eggplants are just getting sniped. I don't even know where they go. Like, I actually want to install a critter cam to find out what is this animal that's just like, but you're right. It's just for the fun of it, man.
Yeah, I like that. Number 4, rip up your current goals and write new ones. Yeah, this is I like it. I like it, right? I mean, sometimes we kind of beat ourselves to death with the same goals year after year after year. And I like this whole like rethinking things and not beating yourself up over it.
So there's a line in there that I really want to highlight. And it says, Ehrlich says that setting goals isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we spiral off track when our intentions don't align with our most deeply held notions of purpose and meaning. It's the doing, not the achieving, that really matters. This is something I actually tell my eldest son all the time. It's never the destination. Like, the destination has nothing to do with anything. Because if I could get you to the destination you want to be tomorrow, trust me, you'd be sad 2 days later, because it was the fun. The fun is getting there, right? And I think that is something that we as a society need to embrace a whole lot. So chef's kiss to this one.
Love it. Tell me about this one. This one, I didn't quite understand from the title of it, and so tap into the de-influencing trend. How did this?
Yeah,
what was your feedback
I think
here?
if I remember correctly, this was kind of eliminating, comparisons in your life, right? I think that was the
Like
idea.
stop feeding into this idea of like keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly. And I think what they're saying is like we're influenced highly by this influencer culture that has this carefully curated presence. Just kind of like, saying that anecdote from that book about the Soul Cycle person who talks about healthy eating, clean living, but is giving her kids Doritos. That's not reality. Like that image that of them on the pedestal that you created, that's not reality. And getting yourself away from that kind of toxic influence. And sorry to use a, buzzword, but that's the way I see it. I agree. I absolutely think that is a component of increasing happiness. Yeah.
Last one I loved. Start a book club. Don't invite your friends.
I didn't like the second half, but tell me what you loved about it.
Well, I first of all, I loved the second half because the don't invite your friends part talked about how much satisfaction there is to gain from talking to strangers. And I'm that guy.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who does get on I'm the guy who's getting on the shuttle bus, the tram, the like everywhere I'm at the airport, I'm constantly talking to strangers. I'm that guy. I feel like, the book club's been fun, and I want to plug our one of our next episodes is going to be a book review on how to be well. But I really resonated with that idea that like there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of benefit to be gained from sharing ideas with strangers, right? Not that you don't have to not invite your friends, but like make sure you're getting more social interaction in.
I see what you're saying.
Than just your friends. I think it's related to having a varied information diet too, right? Like if you only ever watch one news program, all of your friends are on that news program, all your information is from that news program, everything you hear about is what they tell you about, you're going to be a pretty boring, unsatisfied person.
Yeah, I guess it kind of fits in with your pull to get me into like a pickleball playing community near me, just to kind of broaden the horizon of people that I associate. Yeah. So I guess the only reason I didn't like it is because I think about the book club, we had back in California. I'm like, oh, it would have been so sad if I didn't invite my friends. But I think when you put it that way, yes.
Yeah. And I'm excited. Speaking on the don't invite your friends, I think you really should just say like, start a book club, talk to more people about it. That'd be a better headline for that.
Absolutely.
Right. It'd be like, don't just get feedback from your same old friends, but like introduce yourself to new ideas. A book club's great for that because it gets people reading. I definitely have really enjoyed the ones we've read recently. And I'm glad to be reading again, honestly, because I probably went 2 years just watching the news and reading the news and listening to podcasts. And all of a sudden 2 years go by and I haven't read a new book.
And yeah, hopefully as we do more and more of these book clubs, it'll be you strangers out there who will, one day become not strangers. You'll be followers, friends, maybe even patients, who knows? So yeah, absolutely.
Well, Dr. J, I know you need to get going here in a second. Just before we officially wrap, was there any other articles that caught your attention, or I feel like that was kind of the summary of the ones we passed back and forth in the last week?
I think there we have plenty more, but I think at this point my brain is kind of cooked because it is dinner o'clock on the East Coast. So I think
don't forget your physician drinks soda and cooks food for his kids,
and some of it's processed.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. Next time we'll do the podcast from your pantry, and we'll talk through the whole process. But Dr. J, I really appreciate this. The podcast continues to be a way to kind of humanize and get that perspective of like, what would your doctor tell you if you two were friends and you're hanging out at a bar chatting? And I love that that real life experience that you bring, and not just the polished insurance approved voice at the table. So
well, I appreciate your appreciation. And yeah, I mean, I feel like the podcast is kind of our way of branching out, right? Our way of doing something that's, unexpected and novel and fun. And we're not great at it, but we're going to get better and it's going to be a blast.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
All right.
Have a great day, Doctor.
All
Talk
right.
to you soon.
See you then.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the After Hours Clinic podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you love the show, leave us a review. You can sign up for our newsletter at joinbetterlife.com and feel free to send in your hot takes and medical questions to podcast@joinbetterlife.com. Disclaimer: this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice or establish a doctor-patient relationship. Content should not replace professional medical consultation. Always consult your healthcare provider for medical conditions. Do not disregard or delay seeking professional advice based on podcast content.